Welcome to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All-Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz. Russ, what a fun time for people who love baseball. And we're going to talk about the playoffs. We're going to talk about the decisions that have been made today. But first of all, let's start by discussing your great column, your great essay on what playing for Dusty Baker was like and what Dusty Baker means to you. You played for him. You had one of the memories of a lifetime, a memory that people remember in San Francisco and Anaheim still to this day, 19 years later, 19 Octobers later,
Yeah.
game 6
Yep.
of the uh, World Series, Anaheim Stadium. You have a 5-0 lead. Dusty comes back and he hands you the ball. He takes it and hands it back. What did that mean to you? And what does Dusty Baker mean to you?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, this time of the year, it's fun. It's fun for me. This is an exciting, part of the year. Probably the most exciting from being able to play. You end the regular season, and when you're in the playoffs, and every game is one step closer to playing a World Series, and which is what you strive for. And so to see Destiny managing again and being in position, helping to the Astros be in a position they are, it's pretty cool. So it does bring back a lot of memories. I mean, you and I had talked about this, in the last few days, and just kind of jotting down some of my thoughts about Dusty and playing for him, and it brings back a lot of great memories because when I was a young rookie and just coming up. I mean, of course, he knows who I am, because I did well as a closer in the minor leagues, and so 1997 spring training, I get called up just for a couple games just to fill in, like a lot of people do, and you get to meet them, and you know that was really quick, and then the next year on the 40-man roster and going to spring training, and then you really get to experience, really who Dusty is. And from day one, like I wrote um, in the article today, is just he he gave the sense, just by sharing, his thoughts and about us, the organization, the his prospect of the year to come and all that stuff. But then, when he said, "Hey, I basically just have a couple rules, and be on time and don't lie to me," and that was an interesting, thing to hear because, coming from high school and college where there's a bunch of rules, and then even in the minor leagues there's a bunch of rules, and so getting to the big leagues, I kind of halfway thought that there was going to be a ton of rules, and so when he said that, I was like, all right, this is the difference, and maybe Dusty's different than a lot of other managers. When I got to play for Bobby Cox right after Dusty, basically the same thing. He had 2-3 rules, and they're essentially the same thing, and so that just gave me the idea that everybody in there in uniform was going to be treated like a man, treated like an adult, is going to be expected to be responsible for their job, and um, I thought that was great. It was a great feeling, for me to kick off my first time at big league camp, feeling like
Like you're a
I'm not going to
man,
be
you're treated.
yeah, he's not going to be looking at me like as just some young, you know minor league guy, new to the 40-man roster, that he was going to treat me as well as everybody else, like an adult, and expect a lot out of me, which I really liked.
Yeah, I bet. And like Dusty Baker pulling you with the 5-0 lead, third time. He didn't want you to face one guy specifically a third time, and if he'd have done that this year, nobody would bat an eye, right? Like we saw what
Right.
happened at the World Series last year.
Right.
What do you think of the way people are managing now? The way analytics is playing a part in baseball, an important part, a crucial part, and where you don't know what decisions the manager's making, what decisions um, the front office is making, and today a whopper, right? Julio Urias, the first native of Mexico to lead the majors in victories, has a great ERA as well. And can you imagine it in 2002, Dusty saying, "Hey, I'm not starting my 20 game winner. I'm starting my reliever." What do you think of the move today by the Dodgers? Game 5, most important game of the season to date, and you're going to have your 20 game winner coming in relief.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Because you hear, or you've been hearing, if there is a game 5, then Julio was going to pitch and or start the game, and then this seemingly came out of nowhere. I think it surprised a lot of people. I think back in the day, something like that, if something like that was to happen, it may have happened just because, um, of just weather, or the other team may be shaking up something, and it was just one of those special opportunities where you make that call. But this concept is fairly new, and I'm trying to think if it's a a successful concept. I know
Let me just put
The
you on the
Rays
spot. Do
did.
you like it or not? And how would you have reacted if you'd have been told in game 5 that no, you're not starting, you're coming in relief?
Well, you basically only see this during spring training, right? I mean, you have your top relief guys come in, at the beginning of the game, so they can get their work in against the other team's main starters, and then you fill in from there. So uh, I don't know. I personally, I think it's just one of those things where teams are using analytics. They're maybe thinking too much. I mean, there's to me, there's thinking outside the box, and then there's analyzing it too much. But I also think, if I could be frank, I also think there's other reasons, not necessarily in this situation because it's the playoffs, but I think other reasons why it's done is to help keep starters innings down, which allows them to help possibly save money, paying the players and all that stuff. I mean, I think that's just my honest, humble opinion, that it's for other reasons except for just only trying to win games. But
Yep, but to
you know,
me that would make sense in the regular season. Sorry
right.
for cutting you off.
But not yeah, but not
Not in
here.
the
That's
place.
right.
Not,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why I don't I I would say my first reaction was, I don't get this. This doesn't make sense. However, going back to what you and I talked about, when we were having conversations about my time playing under Dusty Baker and stuff, is, well, if they know that, if they feel like this is the best thing based off of, how they know their team, how they know their team's going to react, how they know, if this is going to instill some confidence, some, something in their team that they feel is going to help them in the end, then I guess I can say you just got to trust what they're doing. But everybody knows if this backfires and they lose, a lot of people are going to point to them making this decision. If this works and they win, then a lot of people are going to say, see, that was smart to do, that it paid off. And so we'll see. We'll see. But I mean, I'm more of a conventional person. I love the fact that, when you have a 20 game winner, someone that has proven themselves all year long and in the playoffs, so far, that you let that person do the same thing that he's been doing all year long, um, and just go with that, trust that, and
How
believe in that.
important are routines? This is my main concern. A, I think they might be overthinking it. B, I worry about routines. Starters have routines, relievers have routines. You've done something one way for 162 games,
Right.
30 starts. You This is how you pitched all year. Last year, obviously, he got the save in the World Series clinching victory. So he's comfortable. He's clutching the bullpen. I get it. Julio Urias has done and can do both. But I just worry that all this year he's had one specific routine, one way of preparing for a game, and then today he's going to come in a different way. But how important is a routine? You tell me, for a guy I've never pitched, so I have no idea how important the routine is. But how important is a pitcher's routine for you?
For me, it was important, for pretty much all the other starters that I played with or played against that I've talked to. It was also really important, staying on that routine. The way that your body recovers, the way that you study everything, the opposing team,
I,
sticking to your routine help you because you've been doing it all year long, to make sure that every fifth day that you're at your best. And so,
what? Let me dig a little deeper. Pun intended. You're listening
uh,
to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz. Going specifically to the routine of getting ready to start the game, and I'm talking about. I'm not asking you about how many scouting reports you've watched. I'm talking about you head to the bullpen. At what time would Russ Ortiz head to the bullpen on the day he was going to start? What would he do? And you also came out of the bullpen. You pitched out of the bullpen. What's the difference? If you're starting game 5, what is Russ Ortiz doing from the moment he heads to the bullpen? What time does he go to the bullpen for a 7:05 start?
so I would head out to the field, um, about 30 minutes before game time, and stretch a little bit, play catch, get on the mound, and my goal was to be done, um, 5 to 7 minutes before the game started, because I always like to finish warming up, get into the dugout. And it all depends on how long the walk from the dugout from the bullpen to the dugout too. But
And
my goal,
home
my
or away
goal,
is different, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So if you're away game, what do you do?
so like you have, now I believe in San Francisco, the bullpens, I think, are in the beyond the outfield. Correct? Is that correct? I think.
I think so, yes.
And so there's obviously a longer walk. So then you just time that out. But my goal was to be in the dugout, 5 to 7 minutes before game time, so I can just go in, towel off, just kind of get something to drink and all that, and then you're expected to throw the first pitch at 7:05, and so I had to learn this routine because early on, my first second year, I was throwing, warming up, and then I would finish, and I would actually start the game like a minute late, and I would they would jump on me a little bit because they're like, man, we got to start on time here. That's important. So I had to learn a routine, but once I got that routine down, it was great. And so, I was looking through, just when we were talking about, writing something about playing on Dusty, I was looking through some old stuff, and I found a little piece where the trainer that I had, Barney Nugent with the San Francisco Giants that stretched me, helped stretch me and all that stuff, he even saw that at a certain time that my demeanor changed, because up until a certain point I was just kind of my normal self. And then once it got to, kind of a crucial hour before, game time, he even saw my demeanor change. And so an
How would
hour
it
before,
change? You'd become more intense,
so now
more
I'd be
prickly,
locked in.
more loose?
No, I would be more quiet. I'd be a
More
lot more
quiet.
quiet. Um, you know, and just really concentrating on what I was doing on stretching, and then getting myself dressed and then going out, and I'd stretch again and then the warm up. And so everything was, like I said, it took me a little bit to get that down, but he just saw my focus change from kind of my normal playful easygoing personality to, okay, this is it and it's time to flip that switch. I talk a lot about, especially to younger players, is that you have to learn how to be able to flip that switch. And so speaking of that, like a game like today, Julio goes out to the bullpen, and if this was me, you know if I didn't do this all year long, I think the only thing that I would, have potentially have trouble with, not say that I would, and not, I'm not saying that he has any issue with this at all. This may not affect him one bit, but the thing that I may have an issue with is, when do I flip that switch? Because I'm not getting ready for the, the bottom of the first inning. I'm kind of getting ready for possibly the third inning, maybe.
Hmm.
So when do I flip that switch? And then what if, the starter, the guy who's starting, doesn't do well right away? Then they say, okay, Julio, get up. You're gonna go in for sure the next inning. Well, now, so that to me would be the big thing is, does he, when he flips that switch, when he um, needs to get going, mentally focused, and physically ready, is that going to mess up anything for him? Because I think that's the big question there is, when does he get really ready to to be at his best? And so if his normal game routine is kind of altered, is he able to adjust to that? And you know if something goes off schedule and he has to get ready faster, is that going to affect him even more? All that stuff, because this division series it goes by really fast, and every game obviously matters. That's why it's different from a 7-game series, and this is it. So you got to
Yeah.
do everything you can. So
This,
everybody's going to be on edge today, and so um,
yeah,
but my concern would just be, has his routine been messed with, and is he able to flip that switch when he needs to, to kind of be ready like he would in a normal start.
cool. You're listening to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz. Russ, you've played for. I think the Red Sox are the only team left you didn't play for. You played for the
Right.
Astros, played for the Dodgers, played for the Giants, played
And the
for the
Braves.
Braves.
Yep.
Um, who are you cheering for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, not for the Red Sox, just because I didn't play for them. But yeah, I mean, my heart's always been with San Francisco, because they drafted me, and that's where I grew up as a professional ball player. Um, and but if you were to ask me, San Francisco and Atlanta, if San Francisco wins tonight and they're facing Atlanta, I know I was only in Atlanta for 2 years, but it obviously holds a special place for me in my heart as well. And so, so that'd be tough. I think I always will lean towards San Francisco, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to look back or just look at it and think back, besides the Red Sox, I got to play for all these other franchises, um, and then one of the managers, Dusty Baker, is the guy that I got to play under, and so I'm really happy for him, and him getting another opportunity, um,
I,
there in
I
Houston.
I think Dusty deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He led the only manager in baseball history to lead 5 different teams to division titles. He's going to the ALCS for the second consecutive year. He went to the um, World Series in 2002. He's his body of work, and he's almost like Forrest Gump of baseball. He's he seems to have been everywhere. Hank Aaron is one of his mentors. Jimi Hendrix. He's been with so many people. He's such a sage almost.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, I
to
mean, I think
me
you
he
look at his body of work. I mean, he doesn't have that World Series ring, championship ring, but you look at his body of work. Um, I mean, I really hope that that's something that can be he can accomplish in the end after his career's over, is maybe be enshrined in the Hall of Fame.
taking the heart out of it and just strictly your baseball knowledge. Lance McCullers, we don't know yet. The Astros were saying they still need to see the MRI results. He left game 4 with forearm tightness.
Hmm.
He's a hoss. When healthy, and I said this, if Lance McCullers is Lance McCullers, I predict the Astros win this in 5 games. That's how comfortable I am that the Astros are the better team. If Lance McCullers isn't on, I wonder if the Red Sox win it in 6 or 7. What is your prediction of the American League Championship Series? Who do you think wins this and why?
Well, that's tough. I mean, obviously, the Astros better than I do, and the with the Red Sox, I think about their two main guys, on the mound, Sale and Evaldi, and I mean, those guys are tough to beat. They have some of the best stuff you'll see in the big leagues, and um, so I think as long as the Astros can take one of those games, um, I would say the Astros have a real good chance. I love the Astros team. I mean, I love their offense, and I know their pitching is solid as well. And I know less about the Red Sox, but um, I would say just after Sale and Uvalde, I don't really know much about who's else. I probably should have looked that up, but with the Astros, I mean, I just think with their offense, that I've enjoyed watching, for the last quite a few years, and that so I would say I give them the edge, but they do the first 2 games are going up against two great pitchers, and obviously they have to take at least one of them. If they take 2 of them, if they take both, then I would say it's a no brainer that there's no way that the Red Sox can come back from that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Whether Lance McCullers pitches to me, but this Framber Valdez from the Astros, he's starting game 1. I talked to him today. Had a little one-on-one with him after his press conference to get a little bit more background for the story. This is a kid who was so poor, he slept in the local church. His like, his he didn't have a dirt floor per se, but he had a cement floor. That was, and just listening to the kid and just seeing him pitch throughout the year, the guy's special. The guy is built for success. He's overcome so much, and I think he's going to shine on the national stage this year, and America is going to fall in love with him because he's a badass. He is just talking to him and listening to him. He has the confidence. He shows it on the mound, but also, I always say, hunger breeds excellence. Most of the best athletes I've met have come from very humble families. They've had to work. They've been hungry, and and they've fought to get where they are. And Framber Valdez is one of those kids. And I asked him today. I said, "So, Framber, who were your heroes? What were your childhood memories of watching the playoffs in the Dominican?" And he said, "Well, I didn't watch them. We didn't have access." And he goes, "But I heard that Pedro Martinez was really good." Think about that. And this is a kid who was too poor to have watched Pedro Martinez lead the Red Sox to a World Series title. I mean, that's something, man.
Yeah, I mean, you would think someone that's from the Dominican that I mean,
He knew who he was. He just never saw him in the World Series, never saw him in the playoffs
right. I
because there
mean,
wasn't a television at the house.
yeah, I mean, but you would think that somehow, some way, that it would be made available, and as much as possible.
You,
They would travel to, they would do whatever they could to and travel wherever they needed to go watch that, because it
you
has
would
to be such a huge deal, that for the people in the Dominican, and when
you
someone
would
like
think,
Pedro
right?
Martinez, yeah, you would think, and
You
so
would think, and then you played winter ball in Puerto Rico,
mhm,
correct? Did you
right.
ever play winter ball in the Dominican?
No, just played an all-star game there, so I was only there for a couple days.
And I think everybody who watches baseball and judges these guys should go to the Dominican, right, and see where they come from. Like, you in those 2 days you were there, man, isn't it a whole different? It's 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 a whole different lifestyle when you see the families in the one
Right,
motorcycle, and it's four of them, and it's dad, mom, one kid on the right hand, another kid on the left hand, and maybe a kid holding on to the back. The ingenuity, the
right.
perseverance, and I think this kid, like, he bleeds Dominican, um, just grit. So I don't know, man.
Well,
It
it's
takes more,
interesting you bring,
obviously.
yeah, you bring up something before. Just, when you have stories like this, you want to root for those guys, especially if they come here and they don't take anything for granted, and they do everything they can to win. And those are the guys that you want to root for. I mean, because believe me, I mean, there's guys I play with that came from those situations, and once they got here, got through the minor leagues, they got a little money, not a whole lot, but more than they had before, and they did take things for granted. You just saw that by the way that they did things, and some got a little lazy and all that stuff, and so it didn't necessarily work out for those guys, but the ones that didn't take anything for granted, and had, were successful, those are the guys that you root for. And you know and I don't know him, like him, so um but I'm interested to be able to watch these games, because these are situations where the media, um and a lot of other people can make this bigger than it really is. I mean, you're still going out there and throwing your best stuff against the hitters, weaknesses, and you have to execute. So it's no different from the first game of the season, of the regular season. So
Yeah, you see,
um,
you guys always say that, and I'm gonna call I just cannot buy that. You have to pretend that it's no different, right? In your
well,
mind,
that's
you
what I
have to tell
mean. Is that
yourself,
that's what I
but
mean? Is
it's not.
like I'm not saying it's not it's a playoffs, but this is where the mental part comes into play, and I think this is what I think a lot of people, this is where I say, if you haven't done it, it's hard to understand. And so this is where, if you start listening to every all media stuff talking about how big this is, that you win this series, you go to the World Series, and all that stuff, you start listening to that, you start to put pressure on the situation, where but realistically, it's no different from game number one and during the regular season, because it's about you preparing, knowing the hitters, knowing situations, going out and executing pitches, and
And
same
that's the
same thing with
mindset
the
you guys
hitters.
have to have, right? That's the mindset
I
you have
think
to
you
have.
have to, but some guys love the fanfare, some love all the talk, and they feed off of that. So everybody's different, but the reality of it is, I mean, the the game doesn't change. It doesn't mean that you need to throw better pitches. It doesn't mean that you need to throw harder or try harder. It's just because, after the Giants Dodgers game, there's only four teams left, right? And
Y
so
w
everything's under a microscope. So everything is just going to be heightened. I'm watching I'm watching some of these playoff games, division series. They talk about a certain play, certain pitch, whatever, and I'm like, man, they're reaching there, like they're putting more importance on that one little thing there than they really have to. But that's what playoff baseball is all about. I mean, when you're the last, um, eight teams, in playing, then everything is just heightened. So it's understandable, but at the same time, you still have the same job you did from, on day one.
So, we've been on here for 30 minutes, a little past 30 minutes. You're listening to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All-Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz. Russ, I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go first, so I'll put myself on the spot. I'm predicting Dodgers over the Giants, Dodgers over the Braves. I'm predicting Dodgers over the Braves in 5. I'm
Wow.
predicting or Giants, and if somehow the Giants beat the Dodgers, which is, the guy they have on the mound today, you could bet a lot of good money on the Giants with that guy on the mound. So I wouldn't be surprised either way today. But I think whoever wins this one
Mhm.
will will win the NLCS in 5 games, maybe even sweep. I think the Astros in 7 without McCullers, the Astros in 5 with McCullers. What what do you predict? What do you think is going to happen tonight? What do you think is going to happen in the NLCS? And what do you think is going to happen in the ALCS? And then we'll close with your thoughts.
So I'll start the American League, but I think the Astros are going to win in 6. That'd be my prediction. And I agree with you that whoever wins this game, will end up beating the Braves. Um, Although I think the Braves, they'll continue to surprise people. And so I would say that it goes to 6 games, but I think whoever wins this game tonight, will take it over the Braves. Gosh, man, honestly, I'll say this: if the Dodgers get by unscathed, um, the first couple innings, and then they bring in Julio, after that, I think they win. If the Giants can get out, I think Webb is going to throw. He's going to throw pretty well. I don't think he'll do as well as he did last time, but I think he'll still have a solid start. But um, but the Dodgers have to before they get to Julio, they have to not give up any runs, because if they do, I think the Giants are going to end up taking it. But I think if the Dodgers um, score first and are able to get Julio in the game with the lead, then I would say that they win.
And before we go, I have to kind of give you a little grief and tell the whole world how I offered you 4 tickets to the Alabama game, granted on short notice when you were already at the airport in Dallas. You could have seen
Uh,
that great upset, but I was so excited. It was such a fun weekend of college football.
yeah.
How
And
cool was that to see that comeback at
yeah,
the
well,
Cotton
and we
Bowl?
didn't even talk that we were gonna wear
Our
our
school stuff,
colors,
yeah.
our alma mater, colors, or team. So that was pretty cool. Um, but I remember where was I? I can't even remember where I was, but my wife was actually the one giving me updates, and so she was like, you know, A&M still holding on, and and then at the end, she said they won. They kicked a field goal and they won, and I couldn't believe it, um, but I don't know anything about A&M, so if I was to listen to you, they're the best team in college football. If I was to listen
No,
only
no,
only to you,
I'm
but
pretty realistic. I'm pretty realistic. I told you they had a lot of, but I will tell you this, okay? Our Esquina is devoted to amplifying Latino voices and stories in arts, sports, and culture. And what happened at Kyle Field Saturday night had to be historic because I you had a Cuban quarterback
mhm,
leading the offense. You had a Mexican kicker, which isn't that rare. Like most of the kickers tend to be Mexican. I'm stereotyping here. Uh, so you had the winning kick was kicked by the grandson of a lady from Guanajuato, son of a gentleman, Ricardo Small, who was born in Mexico City, to an white American father, gringo, as Ricardo pointed out, and a you know and a mother from Guanajuato. So I thought it was really cool. And then you had a kid from Laredo, Mexican American, Memo Salinas, as the head yell leader.
mm,
How cool is that? So and I think our Esquina, what we're about telling all the stories of Latinos, you know, and and that was cool because so many people have come on the site to read the story on Sal Calzada and his grandfather's journey to the United States. And you know, it's your rival, obviously, but Oklahoma State, their big quarterback recruit is a Mexican American kid from Fort Worth. You know, when
okay,
I was growing up, you and I are about the same age. You're a little bit younger than me, but there weren't many Latinos playing college baseball. There weren't many Latinos in the College World Series like you were, and we're making great progress. So it was cool, and you and I, we kind of said next time, when you guys join the SEC, we'll have to go, you know, watch our teams play each other
right, for
at Kyle
sure.
Field and in
Yep.
Oklahoma. But hey, man, thanks for sharing your knowledge. This was really cool. We like to dig deep, and it was nice for me as a journalist to ask somebody who's done it, who's been there, done that. I've covered the World Series, but I have no idea what the hell it entails to get there. You've been there, done that, and thank you for sharing your insight with Digging Deep and Ortiz Squared podcast with you, former Major League All Star Russ Ortiz. By the way, the last Mexican American, the last person with Mexican roots to win 20 games to lead the National League in wins, until Julio
Before
Urias
this
this
year,
year.
yeah,
So there you go, man.
yeah,
You're old,
that's
I
pretty
guess. I guess
cool.
what I'm trying to tell you, you're old.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that until you mentioned that. And it's yeah, so that's the cool part about being able to highlight that and what you're what our Esquina is doing. With all with highlighting Latino uh, players, entertainers, just and people and their stories. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool because the thing that you always hear about, you know, Mexican American, Latin players is heart. That there's a lot of heart that's put into, in their when they compete. And I think Julio this year. Well, you saw it in previous years, but especially this year. Um, and we'll see. Hopefully tonight, uh, everybody will get to see it again, and this will be one of those times where uh, everybody knows how good he is, but they'll either see him, perform at a different level, and possibly see the kind of heart that he has. Um, but if he's not able to do what he did all season long, it doesn't take anything away from him. But this is a great opportunity for him. See, I'm already heightening the situation right
Yeah.
now too. It's like
Let's
it's
go, man.
already
You're starting to sound like you're
you'll
starting to
get
sound like
to,
a reporter.
yeah.
We need to give you
I'm
you see,
I'm falling into that trap,
you
but no,
you
you'll
write
get to
you
see.
write your you
You
write your
know,
second column, and
yeah,
you're already starting to sound like me. If we get you to write three more,
yeah,
you're gonna be talking about how, like,
yeah.
it's do or
So
die, and if they don't do this, they have to pitch this differently. But no,
yeah,
thank
I
you
mean,
very
if
much, Russ.
he's going to have an opportunity to show what he's made of, to the world tonight, and everybody else is, but when we're just kind of talking about him right now, it'll be interesting, and I'm a fan of his, and um, so I'll be watching as much as I possibly can.
Well, thank you for listening to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz. Have a great night.
Good night.